So thank you for joining us. We're going to just allow for a few more minutes to get settled and can invite everybody who is on the call with us thus far to go ahead and drop your name, pronoun, your org, and where you're calling in from, your geography, and just what you hope to get out of the presentation today. So if you want to leave some of those things in the chat for us, presenters are welcome to leave that as well, but we'll definitely be getting into all that with the presenters. So welcome again, everyone. Thank you for coming. We have an exciting presentation for today. I'm so glad that so many folks can join us. We've had a lot of requests for videos too. I know since COVID, a lot of people have started, going and watching the recordings afterwards too. So we'll be sure to circulate the recording following. But thank you for those of you who joined us in the moment, because it is certainly nice to see your faces. Welcome. So I'm just going to give a couple more minutes for people to leave their information in the chat. Please introduce yourselves. Yes, Ashley, I see you in the chat and you're one of our presenters today. So glad that we get to be doing this with you. So excited. And Ashley says, looking forward to growing in relationship, partnership, and collaboration with Black farmers and farming advocates from across the country. Yes. And Jazz with Farm School NYC. Yeah, it was nice to see you. Thank you for joining us. And Jazz is hoping to gain more understanding about our landscape and strategies. Nina, yes, Nina's on our team at Food for the Spirit. She's the director of the Buffalo Food Equity Network. Thanks for being here, Nina. She's excited to see how folks in Kentucky and New York are working together to use strategic communication, storytelling, other power building methods to change systems. Yes. Esperanza, yes, thank you for joining us. Vallejo, California, here to learn about the great collaborations between Kentucky and New York-based groups. Yes. So glad you could make it. We have people joining us. Let me just make sure that I'm and we have Brina Knoll here is on tech support. And Brina, if you can see how to admit people too as they come in, I'm switching back and forth. So just bear with me. Annika, yes. She, her from Plattsburgh, New York with Food for the Spirit. Thank you for joining us, being here with us, Annika. And India, reminding us to welcome ourselves in the chat. Let's see, Liz Henderson from Northeast Organic Farming Association and the Agricultural Justice Project, unceded Seneca land in Rochester. Thanks for joining us, Liz. Amanda, welcome. Jamie is here, so I think we're about ready to get into it. Welcome to so many people. Jason, Devin, Olivia, thank you. Thank you for joining us. Sharon, yes, hi, Sharon. Vaughn and Tiffany, who are part of our presentation, our presenters. Janelle Wright. Yes, Janelle, Wawa, Atlanta representing. Yes. Katie Balden. Hi, Katie. So many people that we work in partnership with. And I just got to say, I'm so excited. And Kat Bardonaro, seasonal staff at Grassroots Gardens. So thank you all. And please keep dropping your introductions in the chat. I didn't read through everybody's. So excited just to see everybody here. And I'm about to turn it over to our friends, but I just want to share a little bit about this event and just why I'm so excited about this event today and what is going on for us in Food for the Spirit. So my name is Rebecca Williams. I'm co-founding director at Food for the Spirit. And this event is really critical for us, one, because it marks a moment of transition. We are in the moment of transitioning from a single person led, founder led organization to an organization that is making more decisions collectively, that it's a collective decision-making organization. So, and as we're making that transition, we are inviting people to join us in supporting our organization. So we are looking to invite more of you all who I've been working in partnership with throughout the years, who are supporters of Food for the Spirit, to consider getting involved. And two, the reason why this presentation is so critical at this point is because we all need to have a same starting place. We need to understand what the strategy has been in the past so that we can then co-iterate together, co-envision together what the strategy might be moving forward. So, and I'll just say that one of the reasons I was so excited to have our friends from Kentucky here today is because when I walked into their presentation last June of 2023, I got the chance to see that the three of them, Vaughn, Tiffany, and Ashley, presenting in Washington, D.C. at a Sustainable Agriculture Food System Funder Conference. And their presentation was spot on in terms of so many similarities in terms of how we've been working in New York State, specifically in partnership in Buffalo, but then also across the state. So for us in Food for the Spirit, there's been this place-based, hyper-local development of relationships and projects in collaboration with a statewide group of individuals, many of whom are on the call, that we have partnered with over the years across the state. So it's so exciting to see the clear communication, the just amazing work that Kentucky is doing. And my hope is that the event today can be a kind of case study of two states, New York and Kentucky, or flip that, Kentucky and New York. And we can kind of look at what are some of the similarities, differences in our work, and use that as a starting point for how we deepen engagement and work more collaboratively across the state, and potentially continue building this relationship across our two states, which more about that soon too. So for this first part, I'm going to turn it over to, let's see. So I'm going to turn it over to Tiffany. And let's see, Vaughn. Let's see, where is Vaughn? Oh, and Ashley. There's Ashley. And there's Vaughn. And I'll just manage. Oh. And yeah, Vaughn says that their video may go on and off, but I'm going to unspotlight myself and turn it over to you, Tiffany, and just let me know what to do with the slides.
Okay. Hello, everyone. It's great to see everyone. I'm not going to give individual introductions. We can all do that, but I will just start by saying that we collectively, with our own hats, do statewide power shifting every day. And it's just really awesome that we are back together and doing this presentation with everybody present. And we cannot wait to do questions and answers after we get done collectively as a unit. And please put them in the chat. If you think of something while we're talking, throw it in the chat. Don't wait. Don't hold on to it. Just throw it in the chat. And I'm just gonna do my brief introduction, and I'll say, Ashley, Vaughn, y'all do the same thing afterwards, and then I'll run through my presentation. I think that sounds good. So I'm Tiffany Belfield Elamine. When I originally met Rebecca, I was the Food Systems Equity Organizer for Community Farm Alliance, which was a position that I created, and we'll go through that with our slides. And it turned into something magical, and that is the power shift, and we will talk about that. So currently, I am the director and I am the founder of the Kentucky Black Farmers Association, and I would actually have to say that we are one of few, if not the only, Black farmer-led, minority-led nonprofit organization that is doing what we are calling using narratives to change policy and discover and implement state-based strategies. So we'll go to the next slide for our rabbit hole down CFA's amazing work that we all did together. But I just want to say, so at the time of policy and farm bill and all the things, Kentucky is a predominantly white state. The people who hold organizational power are white. And so it was definitely a table that I sat at where I didn't see a lot of representation. And just like our food system, policy needed that appropriate representation of the people who were not only executing these narratives, but who were physically telling these narratives, because there was a lot of hearsay. Through me working with Federation of Southern Cooperatives, they created Farm Bill policy work. We were already doing work with NSAC, National Sustainable Agriculture Coalition, and then I was able to connect with National Family Farm Coalition. With these three amazing organizations, CFA, Community Farm Alliance, which is in Berea, Kentucky, were members of these organizations. But again, I'm like, where is the Black story? I'm a Black farmer. I'm on generational land. I'm a third generational farmer. My grandfather was the tobacco settlement farmer who didn't know about funds from federal and had to take out a home equity loan. And all of this is policy bills that were being passed that he had no idea about. And then, of course, our legislatures on a state and federal level had no idea that these Kentucky Black farmers were not knowing about the resources that could have helped them through these crises, as well as mental health crisis and things of that nature. And just farmers in general, like myself, had no idea the impact of a bill like Farm Bill would be on us on the county level and on the state level. So I made it my life's work to advocate because I was like, we have to get these stories up there. During the time of like DFAB, all the discrimination was happening. I'm talking to folks, and the first thing they're like, you're from Kentucky? Like, there's Black farmers in Kentucky. And of course, they think we just doing all horse and cattle. And I was like, no, you guys have no idea. So I was able to, with the appropriate folks, I was able to wrangle us to go to DC. In the picture you see at the bottom, that is my daughter. That's Vaughn standing next to me. Our urban farmer, Jeff Coles, and also urban farmer, Mario Gardner, and then our board president now, Tatum Lewis. And for some of those folks, that was their first time ever setting foot in DC. And we started on a federal level because we knew the powers that like Mitch McConnell and things that were happening. It was definitely like we needed to have these stories. There was a lot of equity work that is now released now. This was 2023 that I seen us be able to tell these stories, and it made an impact. And then we also then adopted the Federation's Farm Bill priorities. And so we were few, but because we have these organizations like NSAC, NFFC, and Federation, they helped us feel comfortable and be transparent enough to sit in Mitch McConnell's office and say, this is why we need urban ag initiatives. This is why we need help with the FSA loans and, the way that they do the, I can't even think what I'm trying to say, but like the payback. I'm taking out a loan for this much, but you want to come and take my whole farm. And we're already in deficit with land loss. Our narrative looks different around that. And another awesome picture with a wonderful Grady Lovelace. She's an amazing advocate as well. Next slide. And I'm sorry if I'm talking fast, I'm gonna slow it down, but I want to make sure that everybody gets to present and we get to do some really good, Q&A. Also a part of this in our state, I had to, and I say I respectfully, the role that I was in as that food organizer for equity, it didn't exist. And the creation of that, like I said previously, is that I'm going into space and I'm like, there's no way that you are feeding insecure folks or people in deserted areas. There's no way that you don't understand that we are going through a crisis in West Louisville. There's no way you don't understand that if you don't even know that these growers are in that county or that these numbers actually exist. So while I was at Community Farm Alliance, I then began the Kentucky Black Farmers Directory. This came out of the work of myself and Ashley Smith, Black Swole, which will be after me. And we made the Black Farmers Meetup, which was our first organized, just come be who you are. No sessions, no workshops, just come be. Black people by culture, we love a family reunion. We love feeling like we're in fellowship. Everything is a ministry, right? And to understand that, bringing us together, we had to set that tone, and the representation was very important. We didn't even dig on food system work or policy. We just wanted to get to know each other. And from those registrations and some other tools that we implemented, I was able to organize a good, strong list. In 2023, we had about 115 people on there. And then we started a Facebook group that now we have almost, I think, 300 Black farmers, not just from Kentucky. So we also realized with that power shift, there were these surrounding states that are crying out too, like Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Virginia, West Virginia, and Tennessee. So the directory just keeps growing. But it has been such a tool because with the power shift, you have these other organizations who see the gaps in their equity and in all the ways. And they're like, we need that directory. In the power shift, you also have to understand that everybody doesn't get a free ticket. You do not give that up willingly. And I hold it like dear to my heart because those farmers felt vulnerable enough to come to a place that was for them, knowing that they would be a part of a directory that we would use very intentionally to give resources to them, not necessarily put them on the stage so people can say, oh, look what I got. I got these Black farmers. They exist. You don't get it that easy. I just want to be real about that. Going into the Black Farmer Directory, of course, we continue to do conferences around Black farmers, events, workshops, things of that nature, because even to Farm Bill 101, you have a lot of language that doesn't resonate with people who think their vote never mattered. So changing up that language, I took the FSA, I took the Farm Bill 101 and some other key things that came down from the federal agencies, and I talked like I was talking to my uncles or to my sisters, and we would have a very open and organic conversation about some hard stuff, but it wasn't too weedy and it wasn't to the point where someone couldn't understand, because the fear in not understanding policy or even the levels of power is the fact that if I don't think I'm being understood or heard, I'm not going to come, I'm not going to be present, and I'm not going to be real at the table. And then we get left out the table. And that is the big piece of power shifting. Also, we have the Kentucky Black Farmers Fund. And that farmer fund, which still lives with Community Farm Alliance. I actually invited some of the CFA folks. I hope they do pop up. But it was an intentional fund to be able to take monies and help farmers through COVID pandemic. There were there were monies brought to the state. And I sat at a table and I was like, hey, I don't think Black farmers don't get an opportunity because there's so many other socially disadvantaged groups in the state. Let's create a fund. And so this other graphic you see here with the Maddie Mack Fund, it went from the Kentucky Black Farmers Fund to the Maddie Mack Farmer Fund. That is a power shift. It was very important to get the people who were also helping other folks in crisis in Kentucky to put money into the pot for Black farmers. So Kentucky Black Farmer Fund came, I think we ended up spending out like 50, almost $50,000 for 52 farmers in 26 counties. You see the state of Kentucky, those are the dots. Actually, this is 2023. I think we could do another one in 2024 on 2025. But these are the Black farmers who are in the directory where they're saturated at, which is Central Kentucky, West Kentucky. And from those farmers, about half of those went through the Kentucky Black Farmer Fund. After the fund was done and COVID pandemic was over, I was like, we can't stop there. It can't just be a crisis fund. We need funding all the time. We are, and I'm actually probably will have that number, but I know we're less than what, 1.5, 2%. Like we are very minority here. And so to have a pot of money to help when those situations, when the policies aren't moving, whenever we need immediate help, this sat there and it's pretty amazing. We have Farmer Tyson Graves saying that, it helped him for drought to buy the high price hay. Inflation is real, and the fund offset that. The Maddie Mac Fund then turned into an opportunity to offset the infrastructural grants that came down from the feds, and farmers of color were able to use that for their collateral to get the larger part of money to do more work in the food system. Again, power shift. Having somebody and one person say this is what we need, and farmers saying this is how it helped, it continues to roll. The Maddie Mac Fund is still current. You could still donate to it through CFA's website. Next slide. So building networks through organizing, I've originally stated at the beginning how we connected with NSAC, NFFC, and Federation. The only way that we could have organized trips to DC was through those organizations. Everybody has different funding. Everybody has different missions, different goals, no different than this amazing work that Rebecca is doing as well. You have to know who you are leaning on and what their strengths are and their weaknesses, because a lot of organizations are not minority led, and you have to be able to understand how to conversate about that without emotion and just saying, this is what we need. I was very clear that I needed farmers to go and tell their stories. I was very clear about that. I was very clear that there's not a lot of money for us to do that. There's not an initiative to get Black farmers to Kentucky to DC. But we were able to do that. Also organizing the local things, right? So we had these really good conferences that are in Kentucky. But when I go to them and they talk about policies and bills and all types of things, what's doing good for the chicken industry, they talk about it in full conversations, but we're not there. And I'm like, hey, I know that cattle farmer, he should be here. Like, why is he not here? About diversifying our state conferences. And so we diversified fruit and vegetable. Fruit and vegetable conference is one of the biggest conferences in Kentucky. And every time I went, I saw the same few Black farmers, including myself. There was a lot of Black folks that I knew, and women of color especially, who are doing really good work. And I'm like, how are they not getting invited? So my organizing hat, alongside these amazing people who are founding farmers there at the bottom, Vaughn again, Mariel, Letitia Marshall, Jeff Coles. And those are our urban farmers, right? But they do fruits and vegetables, except for Vaughn. Vaughn does all the other awesome things. But I was like, why are they not there? This is the Fruit and Vegetable Conference. Now, in organizing, you may not get the first row seat in that first workshop. And that's part of the systemic racism that lives very live in our world today, especially in the state of Kentucky. And I'm sure it's in other states. I can only speak from where I'm from. But it was a step in the right direction. Also, what is the other conference? Well, even of us creating Kentucky Black Farmers Conference, it set a tone that this is how we do organizing. This is how we learn policy. This is how we learn all our technical assistance and things of that nature. And it broke it down to the point where now we're on planning committees. Eastern Kentucky Farmers Conference is another one where they're asking, how can we do better? Because we don't want anyone to be left out. It comes with its own hiccups, and that's why you have good national and other statewide organizations. I can call on KFTC, I can call on other organizations when I feel like I'm not being heard, but that's what I call the village. Some pieces of the village have different, aspects. I live in a very village cooperative economics mindset, and because of that, I know that we're all bringing something to the table to organize in a better way. And in this picture, with the sticky notes, that was at our second or third Kentucky Black Farmers Conference, and we had our technical assistance providers there, and they were able to see these Black farmers stick their names up on the stake with all that they do, and they were just like, "Oh my God." All it takes is to have a conversation. And for me, I love pictures and I love a way to say, this is what we've been doing. And we took this stuff with us to DC. We took this stuff with us to Frankfurt. And it was an eye opener, even for the Black representatives that were sitting at the table, because being from Kentucky, they didn't even know that we existed. And this was 2.5 years after work. Next slide. Final slide. All right, because I have my timer on. I was like, I'm not going to talk more than 15 minutes. Um, so all of that work, right? What I still was left with is that there wasn't, when I was going to DC, I was hearing about, hey, we heard your story. And, we're working on these bills and these policies. We are working on these initiatives. And what I would hear is that they were coming and they're in Kentucky. Why don't you guys have anything? Like, why? What is the problem? What is the gap in the patches? Patchwork Initiative is an initiative that came out of the work that I did with CFA. And they created director Jasmine Turk. I actually invited her to be here. And so there's a Patchwork Initiative that our director that organizes the things that we created just from organic, let's do this work, right? And even with that, we understood that we needed multiple of us doing this work. It can't just be me and Ashley. It can't just be these 5 farmers. It has to be bigger than that. So in our 3rd year Kentucky Black Farmers Conference, it was, we did I won't even say we, I won't even take that credit. Ashley Smith lined that policy up. Do you hear me? We understood our commissioners. We understood our representatives. We got, we had farmers that did not have a relationship with policy or even understanding their power and their stories, sitting in this room and being able to navigate through their voting and everything, right? And what we understood is that we needed something for us. We thought it was going to be cooperative, but are we there yet? We had to build our own infrastructure. And so we, as Black farmers in Kentucky, decided to make a nonprofit. So I created and founded the Kentucky Black Farmers Association. And that is our logo. And that's what we do now. And so I take Farmers to Federation, the association. We are now members of National Family Farm Coalition. So now farmers are always present when they're doing policy work. This picture below was Power Shift. So now I'm the director working with the director of CFA, and when they're doing policy work, I'm on their bandwagon and vice versa. And the picture down the bottom, that's 2 CFA. Well, actually, that's Sandra Blue Barnes with CFA, Tatum and Alexis, farmers of ours, and then of course me, and we're at Frankfurt. And that was the first time Alexis had ever been to Frankfurt. And so we're building leadership through policy work and also giving people their power that they thought they didn't have, actually reconnecting them to their power that they didn't have. And from that, we are starting new markets. We are working with different organizations nationally and globally now. We're working with the African diaspora here. And also understanding, like, we've been to UN, we've now taken 3 trips to DC and 2 trips to Frankfurt. And now we're about to rally up for another policy gathering to get prepared for the presidential election, and then to also understand the changes and the updates with the Farm Bill. Those things did not happen and did not exist, I feel and know, 3 to 4 years ago. And so I just, it's amazing work. It takes the people who know Like, I'm from Kentucky. I'm from Central Kentucky. I understand the climate. I go and sit with these farmers, but I'm also a farmer. But I understand my power role, and I can wear the different organizing hats. But also delegating with the right leadership. And my leadership and the association are farmers. They're not people who just popped up, or people who, even my beginner farmers, they're farmers who actually understand what they're doing. So I'll stop talking there, and I will pass it on to Ashley. If you guys have any questions, throw it in the chat. I'll be very excited to answer anything. And Ashley, it's all you.
Awesome. So Vaughn's not going next.
I can go right now, but for some reason my camera is not showing me.
Okay.
You guys,
I'm not sure if Becca had put our slides in a certain order. So
Oh,
Got
no,
it.
you're all set, Ashley. I've got your slides ready to go.
awesome. Okay. Well, let's give it up for Tiffany for leading us off from the Bluegrass State. Thank you very much for continuing to advocate for everybody across our 120 counties. My name is Ashley. I live in Lexington, a native of Lexington, born and raised. And I'm excited to share more about what we have going on in Black soil. Love to start off the presentation today inviting you to Kentucky. September 8th through the 11th, we will host State of the Soil, which is a national convening gathering, small to mid-size farms ready to really take their markets to the next level. Growth stage agribusinesses, that includes food brands, culinary professionals, as well as the industry advocates and professionals who support them. So you see here a collage of our vision and mission lived out: education and outreach, value-added products, direct to consumer, farm to table. Okay. And so we'll go to the next slide. And so if you want to reach out to me, please feel free to ashley@blacksoilky.com. And I'm excited to be here. Okay. And I don't know if this video will work, but we'll try. And I've also dropped that in the chat as well at the very beginning, and I'm happy to do that again. So we can go to the next slide, just for the sake of time. But what that was is a on-air, oh, no problem. It's an on-air commercial that we ran with our local NBC affiliate, LEX 18. And as an agribusiness marketing community agency, we really work to help walk alongside Kentucky Black farmers, chefs, and makers, and allowing them to catapult to the next level. And so in working with them side by side, we help them become household names. And so on our slide here, we talk about our mission. And so that first and foremost is to reconnect Black Kentuckians to their heritage and legacy in agriculture. We say heritage first because of the hemp, tobacco, equine, and distilling that arose from enslavement, the cash crops of Kentucky. The hemp here, cultivated and raised by enslaved men, was sent to the Deep South to bale the cotton in which our enslaved ancestors toiled to bring to market. And so once we first and foremost activate those individuals who are farmers, growers, and producers, we're also activating an oftentimes underrepresented, overlooked, and marginalized consumer base. As a sociologist, my approach to this work for the past 7 years has really been as we examine the decline of Black farmers, the correlation between the rise of food insecurity, apartheid, and injustices disproportionately battening down on our Black and Brown communities. So as we continue to build those relationships amongst the between the ag industry and the consuming public, we know that relationship then fosters a greater market share. So coming into this work, I had no clue about ag really. I'm not a practitioner, as Tiffany mentioned earlier. I'm someone who would sit in city hall meetings in my freshly minted role at a nonprofit focused on land advocacy. And so within those city hall meetings, planning, zoning, council meetings, work sessions, are Black landowners within our post Civil War hamlets. These settlements, these freed towns were oftentimes overlooked and not involved in the conversation. So in August of 2017, after being on staff there for a month, worked alongside our co-founder Trevor Claiborne and began bringing folks from Louisville and Lexington, two of our three largest cities in Kentucky, and we would host farm tours. So in August of 2017, we got started in basically saying, there are rural Black farmers who are in the throes of crisis, destabilization, worried constantly about whether or not they're going to lose their farms. Early listening with those founding farmers helped us understand that many folks would doubt them cultivating, harvesting, yielding what they were selling at the farmers market, not being able to compete with pricing comparable to their white counterparts, being able to walk away with the same type of yield. And so that's really where we dug in. The tours allowed folks to build rapport directly with the farmer. The farm to table dinners continue the conversation over food and networking and breaking down even more the day-to-day of a farm and what happens there. We work in providing referrals to our Black culinary artists and professionals, and then workshops, trainings, education, and outreach, similar to what we described with the state of the soil. We can transition to the next slide. So this is an older slide. We have grown our staff to include now 3 additional individuals, a director of operations, and then 2 agribusiness associates. But here is our core team. We have our director of marketing to the right of me, Amber Fuller. So all of our visualizations and representations of our mission and our vision, and then working side by side with our farmers in an administrative way in helping correlate, liaison, and respond to their needs through the USDA Appalachian Regional Food Business Center is our agribusiness development specialist, Krista Callanan. Okay, we can turn to the next slide. And so again, for our new young and beginning farmers and helping them get started with a strong piece of sense of their brand and the direction that they need to go in order to help their products end up on shelves and consistently with a diversification of that portfolio. We extend a digital footprint assessment, focusing on the marketing, the agritourism, and the sales of their operation. And so feel free to scan our QR code. Okay. So in the off season, when we're not conducting our aggregation and distribution, on our next slide, you'll see an example of the work that we've done through our event-based outreach, our event-based storytelling. So we have former Kentucky Poet Laureate, recent release praise song for the Kitchen Ghost, Crystal Wilkinson, an Afro-Latin poet. You see at the bottom there, we worked with her national publisher, Penguin Random House, our local bookstore, bookseller, Joseph Beth, and our venue there at the Living Arts and Science Center. We incorporated our seasonal produce as well as local meats from our Black farming ecosystem. Worked with a local chef who's also from rural Appalachia, Kentucky, James Beard Award nominee, Chef Isaiah Screech. And we were able to weave through the culinary lyrical memoir and bring to life the recipes of the Kitchen Ghost. So the ancestors of Crystal Wilkinson from the Appalachian Eastern Kentucky region telling the story using food. Okay, and so we can go to our next slide. So this year has been all about establishing our baseline. 2022, we completed the latest census of agriculture, and in 23, we have the opportunity to review the data. And so obviously, you don't know where you're going if you don't know where you've started. So on our next slide here, we want to talk about how in March at the Kentucky Black Farmer Conference, we presented a snapshot of where Kentucky's needle has been moved since 2007. And so, again, starting this work and needing to really understand the position that I could make a difference. Ag is amazing industry because you can create your own pathway. We see here the census data, men lie, women lie, but numbers don't lie. And when speaking about discrimination, racial injustice, you have to come with the facts, not the emotions. And so we utilize from the very beginning in establishing the why, and our strategy is utilizing federally supported, vetted, certified data points in order to tell a story as to why in 2007, in the shadow of the Pickford and Glickman lawsuit, the impending 2008 financial crisis. We were sitting at around 500 Black-owned farms, and then fast forward as we continue to decline at the snapshot in 2022, though we lost a substantial amount of acres and numbers of operations. What happened along the lines of 2017 to 2022, as you see the 5-time growth within the market value of these Black farmers products, because we again ask the question, if Mother Nature can't see who puts the seed in the ground, then why do we have such enormous disparities in agriculture? And so being unable to shake that question 7 years ago, Black Soil KY was established to not only reconnect Black Kentuckians to their heritage and legacy in agriculture, but get to the bottom of chipping away at a $4.9 billion market value disparity between our white farmers in Kentucky and our Black farmers in Kentucky. So we can see here the data shows us, though we had a substantial decrease, we were able to lock in improved direct-to-consumer marketing strategies, institutional procurement opportunities that we literally broke down the doors and overcame many barriers on our university, institutions, corporate, and privatized business opportunities. And then lastly, having fierce fundraising, philanthropic, grant writing strategy as well. So on our next slide here, we'll talk about how we eat local year round. And you can see in our fulfillment center, standing there is Lincoln County based lifelong farmer Susan Miller with her famous heirloom tomatoes. And so farmers bring their products one time. We then send those products out, we aggregate them, and then we distribute them through our diverse sales and marketing channels. So we're in the throes right now, and I hope many of you are as well, in the local food purchasing agreement. We did substantial advocacy on behalf of our Black farmers and ensuring that they could start their seasons with forward contracts, cash flow, to ensure that we were able to meet our goals of reaching 16,000 Kentuckians. And so not only working with this group of farmers who we've worked with and have consistent, reliable deliveries, we then work with agencies such as the Kentucky Black Farmers Association, and working with them to, again, continue pushing the needle even further to ensure that all of our Kentucky Black farmers know how to maintain food safety, public safety around their aggregation and distribution, and be a lot more resilient and durable as the years go on. And so on our next page here, you'll see as we look forward. So we have our brick and mortar. We have 2 retail spaces located in 2 of our historic Black communities, the east end of Lexington and the west end of Lexington. So our retail locations surrounded by single family homes, mixed housing types. Those individuals will be able to walk, access, arrive to provide them with unadulterated access to seasonal produce, local meats, value-added goods. For those out in our hardest to reach rural communities, all the way to our most blighted urban communities, we can come to you through our mobile market. We will actually be hosting the Buffalo Go Green CEO alongside the CEO of Farmers Truck in September as we speak about our national step forward into the Food is Medicine program. All right, and so we can go to the next slide here. And I think I might be finishing up. Okay, that's another video that's not going to play. This is an example of our annual calendar. So we do farm tours, really focusing on educating farmers. And then we also have several different other types of events, specialty weeks like Soul Feast Week, Black Soul KY Week, getting out into the community and doing free distributions, again, alongside of the Kentucky Black Farmer Association. And then lastly, the State of the Soil in September. So on our next slide, we want to thank how partnerships. We want to talk about partnerships being a huge asset to the farms that we work with, whether it be our visitors and tourism bureau of talking about how land-based tourism and driving that type of activity. Feeding America, we're a part of the Food Security Equity Impact Fund. I briefly mentioned the Regional Food Business Centers, as well as the Farm Credit Mid-America partnership and Chorus Foundation. Okay, on the next slide. And then again, I want to thank you so much for hosting us from the Bluegrass State to connect and share more about the work that we're doing here. And I'll turn it over to Vaughn. Thank you.
Thanks, Ashley. I appreciate it. All right. Can you guys hear me? Good. Awesome. Let's go ahead and pull these slides up.
Can you guys see it?
Great. So my name is Vaughn Barnes. I was at the time working with Community Farm Alliance like Tiffany under the Patchwork Initiative, and I was the host for the Blackberry series, which was a podcast series under the Community Farm Alliance podcast. My goal with this podcast series, like the other two podcast series that was hosted by CFA, was to highlight farmers of color throughout the state of Kentucky, almost as a supplement to the work that they were already doing, the work that Ashley was already doing. It's just giving them a platform where people could see the other farmers, the Black farmers in the state, farmers of color in the state, and what they were doing and the work that they were putting in. As you can see on that front slide, there's a few of the farmers that are out there. Ashley herself, Marion Tatum, Keith, and then Travis Cleaver down at the bottom. If you can go ahead and go to the next slide. All right. So the Blackberry series, the Farmers of Color Story Project, like I just mentioned, was a series under the Community Farm Alliance podcast. There was two other series previous to the Blackberry series, but this series is primarily focused on farmers of color and the voices and the stories that they share. Go ahead, next slide. This is one of the farmers that was a part of season 2. His name is Kurt Mason. Information is a critical piece of equipment needed in any farm enterprise. Historically, access to this tool has been lacking or delivered in an incomplete manner. The Blackberry podcast has been able to put information in a trusted toolbox, one that younger Black farmers can relate to. And this podcast provided an opportunity for people in his generation to connect to younger generation. Because there's such a delta between older farmers and younger farmers, we looked at the podcast as an opportunity to make to bridge that gap and allow people to hear those stories, to know where people were coming from, to understand where they were started, to almost stand on the shoulder of giants and try to continue to see further with what we could do with agriculture in the state. Please, next slide. Right here is a screen grab of CFA's YouTube channel at the time when we first did the presentation. Of the 12 mainstays on the YouTube, Blackberries took up 11 of them. And that was last year when we gave this presentation. When you go to the next slide, you will see on that next slide that at this present time, Blackberries takes up all 12 slides. So when you go to CFA's YouTube page, the stories of the farmers of color predominantly brings people back to that page over and over. It's these stories that are actually carrying that nonprofit, which, you know, subsequently is ironic that our stories are what's doing this. So when Ashley is doing the work that she's doing with Black Soil in Lexington, when Tiffany's doing the work that she's doing with the Kentucky Farmers Association, it is vitally important that there is a network of people that are working together, and that that list is what matters. And obviously we can see it here within the numbers. This is what people are coming for. This is what they want to see. This screen grab was taken 2 days ago when I was updating this presentation. And like I said, irony, the top 12 videos are Blackberries. If you were able to scroll past to see more, all of Blackberries are the videos that people come to the YouTube to see. Next slide. So social media by the numbers. At the time when this was first created, that is the following from the Instagram, the Facebook, and the YouTube all aggregated. That number has since grown. I know the subscriber number I updated that number because it was about 140 some subscribers on YouTube. And for a year, we haven't put out another Blackberries, and they've grown about 30 some people. And then as far as the comments, there have been more comments, but I wasn't able to tally up the numbers for how much more people were talking about Blackberries. But I can say this when you go to the next slide. I can say this because of the comments and because of all of the things that have been happening on behind the scenes. CFA is looking to get me back on for a third season to get more stories of farmers of color, because they're starting to see the impact and change of what's happening with Blackberries. Because people kept asking, so when is season 3 going to happen? When are there going to be more stories out there? Jazz, I'm glad you're here. I see you. I just gave a shout out to Jazz, who is a part of CFA staff, and she's one of the people that is advocating for the podcast to be back another season. It was such an honor. This is a quote from Karee Williamson, a farmer out of Fleming County, Kentucky, basically saying she was honored to be a part of the Blackberry series. And I just recently met her this year, which ironically enough, when this picture and when this podcast was taken, it was 2 years ago. And this is the first time we met each other in person. She came to Jefferson County, which is roughly about an hour, 2-hour drive away from each other. And what she told me was just how much people in her county appreciates the episode, and they would look at the podcast and learn more about her, and would follow her story now in Fleming County as a flower farmer with her partner. Next slide. Now, these are just some of the numbers from behind the scenes, again, from the YouTube channel, to show our age and demographic of who's paying attention and who's watching, and how we could possibly strategize our content a little better for the people that are engaging with the Blackberry series. For you all, whether you decide to do something relatively similar in whatever area you are, this is where you would want to aggregate your information to know who you're talking to, how to present your information, and how to strategize around what best fits the people that are paying attention. And then knowing the people that are paying attention based on these numbers, it give you more accuracy on how you could do the work that you're trying to do to aggregate the money that you're trying to for the people that you intend to serve. Next slide. All right, and then paid attention. This is getting a little into the nuts and the bolts. Behind the scenes, while the podcast was primarily word of mouth, this only works if you have a product put together as well, and you're trying to reach people that haven't been able to be just sought after by word of mouth. Using ads from Facebook Marketplace or using ads from Facebook Meta Business Suite, to target your audience a little better makes it easier for people to then find you and then utilize the services or whatever it is that you're going to offer. In the sense of the podcast, if we were to take ad dollars just to bring attention to the podcast, through the podcast, we would then strategically place advertisement that would talk about the Maddie Mac Fund or talk about CFA membership or talk about any of the things that we were doing as an organization to then help drive traffic to the things that we were doing because they were emotionally invested in the podcast. Hopefully everybody's tracking with a thumbs up in the chat or, yep, I got you, whenever I see those things fly on the screen. Yeah, thanks. So Tiffany, go ahead to the next slide. This here is another quote from a farmer from season 1, Tatum Lewis, who was actually our first interview. Being included in the Blackberry series was an amazing experience that helped cultivate awareness of young Black farmers like myself and the impact that farming and agriculture have on society to give me a chance to share my farming story, my history, my passions, and my motivations. And the irony enough, if you guys are not familiar with the state, Tatum and Clark County is, again, another 2 hours and 15 minutes in Winchester from Louisville. But he comes all the way to Louisville to do a farmer's market, which, again, the testament of our connection as farmers and people of color in the state of Kentucky. That's just a big shout out to him. And I'm really appreciative of him coming that far to do what he does as a farmer and to show himself out in the city in urban areas. Next slide. User engagement. How did the podcast do on YouTube? This is not a reflection of Spotify, Facebook, or Apple Music. These numbers, hopefully you guys can see them. The total videos on the YouTube at the time was 75. At the completion of 2 seasons, there was 26. So 26 videos basically turned up a lot of the attention on Community Farm Alliance's YouTube channel. The reach before Blackberries, before BB Blackberries was 72. And then since Blackberries has been on there, the current subscriber base has moved to 179. The average hours per episode was roughly about 4. Each episode take about 4 hours. You got 30 minutes to talking, and then about 3.5 hours of collecting video footage, editing, and putting things together. Just so you all to get context on how long it would take to do something like this in your own way and in your own budget. Another thing that I will say that I tried to do was keep it really simple, keep it really bare bones. The same way that we are doing this Zoom is the same way that I would do interviews. Everybody has a cell phone. As long as you can hit record on your cell phone and you can be in a place where there's decent enough audio, that is good enough to get you a podcast and get your podcast started. Go ahead and on to the next slide. And I'm just being really for real, you just want to start somewhere. A lot of the times what happens with people is they get to a place where they want things to be so perfect that they don't move. And without moving, it makes it harder for people that really want to hear your story and that can connect to see what's going on with you. So my little tidbit of encouragement, just get started. Start where you are. Start with what you have. Use the tools that are in front of you. Make do with that. And then it'll develop. And then, as I would always say to end each podcast, you can go to the next slide. Real change comes from the ground up. Until next time, thank you. Peace.
Thank you, Vaughn. Thank you, thank you. So I just want to say, because I got a little teary-eyed, because I just need y'all to know that I knew Ashley Smith before she did Black Soil. Watching BSKY go from off-season workshops where she brought farmers across the state that she didn't even know met and say, meet me here, and we in a little Wild Fig coffee shop, to her aggregating multi-state across the state. It's amazing. And when I met Vaughn, I knew what he was going to do, but I never, it's retrograde, y'all. Sorry for my tears. I did not expect for Vaughn to touch every corner of the state of Kentucky. Fleming County is East Kentucky. Clark County is East Kentucky. You see where we're concentrated at, y'all. And we are everywhere. My members are all over the state of Kentucky. And I never thought that I'd be doing that. Never in a million years. So again, what Vaughn said, just start somewhere, because it's going to happen. And with the data, the facts, you see that it has definitely, it is an impactful work that we are all doing. And I just salute both of you all. And I'm going to get my feelings back together. Also, I want to say Jazz Turks in the chat, the Patchwork Initiative Director for Community Farm Alliance. I told her I gave her flowers as well, because she is taking on and being a part of this village of work that we all have to do. So with 5 minutes, maybe 3 or 4, I want to open up the door for questions right now. We have till 3:10, right, Becca?
Yeah, at least let's see what we have. There were some questions that were put in the chat that I think could be dropped back in the chat at this point. I don't know how many questions there were. I definitely saw one. But I know that
There
Annika.
was one question for Ashley. While Ashley was
There we go.
presenting about the services
It's in
that
the chat.
Black Soil offers. And sorry again, I'm like working remote, so it's kind of difficult for me where I'm at in Detroit.
No problem. Thanks for the question. It just depends on the farm. That's why we have you do the assessment first to get a sense of where you're at. So it could be a charge, it could not. It just depends. Okay, the questions about institutional contacts, contracts, being able to, I understand about the Good Food Purchasing Program. So the local food purchasing agreement has been transformational. We don't really do farm to school directly. That is a track within our state's option. Our biggest thing has been ensuring that this funding that matriculated basically from the Farmers of Color Act that got blocked in the court system. Then they changed it from, Black farmers to historically and then socially disadvantaged. People can say that they're socially disadvantaged, but are they historically socially disadvantaged? So there's really not a lot of for real data in regards to really breaking that down on the racial and ethnic demographic, because it's self-reported. I can look at someone and in my mind I can assume that they are something to other another, but I can't make any judgments on that. So what I can do with the track that we have is what we've done is we are ensuring that the folks who have the capacity have the largest market share, and then folks who will continue to build up their capacity, we work to kind of wane that off. So we're not over promising and then under delivering, which has been the main issue of now that we're in the middle of it, everyone is still doubting. But we've stayed strong. We've we've had a really interesting March for sure. But this season has gone by extremely fast, and we have been very diligent in directing as much outreach to bring folks in. How do we engage with non-ag community members? They come to farm tours. They can participate in local ag through farm to table dinners. They can show up to community gardens. They can do pollinator garden workshops. They can attend women's retreats on farms. They can listen to the podcasts. They can shop at their farmers market or retail complimentary, retail model. There are a lot of ways that non-ag people can be engaged in local food. First and foremost, knowing that you drive the demand, the farmers have the supply. You are worthy of eating local. You're worthy of eating really, really good food. And it doesn't have to come at a cost where you're having to make really hard decisions, which I know I'm preaching to the choir here. It's easier said than done. But I'm really thankful that we have a strong here locally. Our ag department, Department of Agriculture, has a lot of marketing programs. Extension is pretty strong here, 4-H, FFA. So for many Kentuckians, it's a way of life. And even with our urban core, where people are stereotypically disconnected or, disconnected for several generations, they're excited to get their hands in the soil and become one and reconnect. So I hope that
To add to that,
those
Ashley,
questions.
I'd love to say this. Engaging with most non-ag community members, it's kind of hard for me to think about who's non-ag if you eat food. So if anybody's eating food, if anybody's using machinery, you're involved in ag somehow. If you go outside and you breathe fresh air comes from something that's ag related. So and then also now that I'm extension and I've learned how much more we connect with ag as far as like people, how people connect with ag. Even at this urban ag conference that I'm attending in Detroit, we are trying to reconnect those people that feel like they're disconnected to say like, hey, look, you're a part of ag, whether you believe it or not, whether you realize it or not, you are part of ag. So it's just how you connect and what you want to do and where you want to see yourself is kind of just it.
And I'm going to tie a bow on it so we can be done. We just went 5 minutes, maybe 3 minutes past. Agreed to both, and don't want to repeat nothing that you already said. But that farm to school is tricky because it's not as easy as just saying, "Oh, I'm a farmer and I want to sell to farm to school." There are a lot of new initiatives. Community Farm Alliance is connected to them as well. Lori White is doing the Farm to School Network work, and they do try. But again, if there's nobody representing that farmer of color within the school district, with that person that's in the kitchen, with those folks, it's hard. I think the biggest part with farm to school is connecting to the educational pieces of it and then funneling in. I think even when I hear about like Smith Susan Miller and other farmers, they don't just procure some food and take it in there. No, we're learning about it. We're feeding. They're coming to the farm. It's very well rounded, like Ashley said. And then following into that, like she said, community members, they just have to be a part of the farm workshops and programming. I've met the most influential people who support my farm because they came to my women's retreat or they had a workshop. We had a group of synagogue folk come out here and all they wanted to do was be reconnected to the land. And in that, we discovered other ways that we could build the food system, just having organic conversations. And for the association, we are a farmer-led organization, but we have friends of the farmers, allies, and a lot of those people do not have no connection to agriculture. But like Vaughn said, if you eat, you're part of agriculture. So again, thanks to everyone here from Kentucky, even though you're in Detroit. Kentucky. And we'll turn it all over to Becca. Thank you all.
Awesome. Thank you all. So thanks for our friends in Kentucky. And before we move too far into the next part of the agenda, and I feel like I'm kind of sad because we Well, I'm very sad because we lost Esperanza, and I just want to give a shout out to Food and Farm Communications Fund. They are the foundation that that worked with Tiffany and everyone to bring them to DC last June, and they are also making this presentation possible today. So just want to shout out to Food and Farm Communications Fund. Esperanza was with us earlier. And Siobhan, who is there, is just phenomenal. So grateful for them and their support connecting us across the country because they are based in Kentucky, Food and Farm Communication Fund. So I am going to take a moment and I'm just gonna put them in the spotlight for a moment with me. Let's see, or maybe I can't. But I'm gonna be joined by two people now from New York State. And also one last piece of information before we move into this, just that Nina Ferguson, who's our director, my coworker in Food for the Spirit. She's our director for the Buffalo Food Equity Network. As we were preparing for today, she just mentioned people might really be interested in digging deeper in some of this. So we are going to be hosting just kind of like loose conversation. Unfortunately, we are blessed to have Tiffany with me. So as of now, it will just be Tiffany and I, and then anybody else who is able to drop in from the presenters and anybody here. But we're going to be hosting a conversation next Monday to dive deeper in terms of the connections across the state. So Tiffany and I are going to be holding space for that next Monday from 6 to 7 p.m. So if you want to have just like a relaxed kind of community conversation, we will be having that conversation next Monday from 6 to 7 p.m. And you should reach out to, you can reach out to us at info@foodforthespirit.org if you would like to be invited to the calendar invite for that. And it'll just be kind of a loose conversation if folks have follow-up, and we can definitely refer to any questions in the chat that we don't get to today as well. So I'm going to just spotlight my New York State friends for a moment, just so we can see us all. So just really grateful that Joanna Dorsey and Jamie Swiger are here with us today. And the flow will be that I'm going to just say a little bit about some kind of similarities, just high level similarities that I see between kind of what the Kentucky folks have just presented to us on. And I had mentioned at the beginning of this that I was just so excited to see their presentation because there were just so many overlaps in terms of our strategy, in terms of this kind of concept of state-based strategy to shift narrative and policy. So just high level, the triumvirate of policy advocacy and outreach efforts and network building, which I heard in Tiffany's presentation, the connection to farmers, connecting farms to markets in Ashley's presentation, and then also providing farmers with support. I think you heard that in both Tiffany and Ashley's presentations in terms of the fund, as well as the assistance that Ashley provides bringing the products to the markets. Just amazing, amazing work. And then, of course, Vaughn with the Blackberry podcast and that storytelling focus. So that kind of focus on, connecting with the farmers across the state, not just hearing their stories, but also recording their stories, ensuring their stories are online and accessible to the public so people know that Black farmers are out there, that we're out here, that people are doing this work. So those were the high level similarities that I heard. Just just to kind of uplift a couple things. I know we had Olivia Carter here from the Black Farmer Ecosystem in the room today. So I just wanted to shout out to the New York State Black Farmer Ecosystem and the way that those partners are working together across the state as well in New York State, and really there. So we heard in Tiffany's presentation how they went ahead and made the connect with the funding. So then we have an organization that started focused on New York State, which is Black Farmer Fund, that was really started to focus on funding in New York State. And we really worked in close partnership with them. So many of our partners on the call here today and those that we work in community with in Buffalo and across the state have definitely engaged with Black Farmer Fund and other ecosystem partners like Northeast Farmers of Color Land Trust, Black Farmers United, of course, who Joanna is representing today. They are a member of the ecosystem, Corbin Hill Food Project, and Farm School New York City, which Jasmine Kerr, who was on the call earlier, is from Farm School New York City. So that ecosystem is doing really important work, and we definitely work side by side in partnership. Oh, of course, and Soulfire Farm is a member of the ecosystem as well. So that's just kind of a difference, that there's some of these like formal structures of like this ecosystem. Also just a slight difference is, I heard Tiffany talk about the network building, and in Food for the Spirit, we are the steward of 2 place-based networks in New York State, one being the Buffalo Food Equity Network and another being the Finger Lakes Accountability Network. And a big part of the way we've worked in the past is to work alongside our network members, to work together to develop programs and projects and events. And then what is similar, of course, is that we've also worked through deep relationship and partnership across the state with organizations like Black Farmers United, like some of those ecosystem partners. So just noting some of those similarities and differences, and a big thing in terms of our next steps as an organization, we are really looking forward to digging deeper into what is the how? Like, how do we support the development of these networks, right? So that is a critical question for a lot of us in our Food for the Spirit core team. I would also just say a difference in terms of Ashley's presentation is our focus in New York State really has been on this good food purchasing program that Joanna Ashley, I think referred to, but the Good Food New York bill has been a big deal for us in New York State. We are so excited about it. And a lot of our work around supporting Black farmers in New York State did start with this good food purchasing program and wanting to ensure more Black farmers were landing contracts with institutional markets. But then we found that they are unable to, for many of the reasons that Ashley talked about, but also needing some more of that foundational support in terms of funding, land access, technical assistance, et cetera. So I want to shout out Monty and Catalyst Collaborative, just in terms of his systems thinking and what he's doing, also based in the in the Hudson Valley area. So yeah, so that was a slight difference too, is that like kind of figuring out, before we can connect our farmers to markets, some of them needed more capacity. So what does that capacity support look like? And so we heard some of that in the Kentucky folks presentation. They are also supporting that capacity, but we've really shifted our focus a whole lot to focus on that capacity building piece for our farmer partners here in New York State, and trying to figure out what that capacity support looks like for Black farmers in New York State. And then finally, I just can't get enough of like the vision and the deep dive that Vaughn takes in that storytelling piece, really analyzing the social media data, the comms data, dreams. I gotta say, there's so many dreams when I hear these presentations, just so much good fuel in terms of thinking about what we could grow into and move into as collaboration across the state. So I'm gonna, on that note, just turn it over first to Jamie. So I'm gonna unspotlight Joanna and I for just a little bit, and then we'll come back to Joanna in a bit, but so yeah, thanks Vaughn, thanks everyone, and I'm gonna go on mute and I'll cue up your presentation, Jamie.
Thank you. Hi, everyone.
Oh, please introduce yourself as well, since I didn't do introductions in the opening. Thank you.
No problem. So while she's queuing that up, I will introduce myself. I'm Jamie Swigert, and I'm actually from a little city called Lackawanna, just south of Buffalo, New York. I am the chair and founder of the Juneteenth Agricultural Pavilion and proud member of the Buffalo Food Equity Network. I'll start by saying I am not a farmer. I'm not a grower. I do not have a green thumb. I've always wished that I had. My background, at first glance, is very mixed, diverse group of experiences that look unrelated. Hopefully through this presentation, I'll be able to show you how all of my experiences have come together and brought me to the Agricultural Pavilion. Early in my career, I started in nonprofit work, doing a lot of coalition work, working collaboratively with organizations that were working on literacy issues within the city of Buffalo. That's how I was introduced to coalition work. As time gone on, some of my career was focused mostly in education, and I also have a very corporate background. So in these experiences, I've become very attuned to equity and inequities, both in the corporate workplace and also in nonprofit work. So when I, in 2016, took a position with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, that was my first introduction into agriculture and what it was. And I worked for NRCS, and I was part of a group that was administering farm bill programs to farmers within 3 counties in New York State. The first thing that I noticed was that none of the farmers looked like me. We had a state employee that was a Black woman, and I started talking to her about it, and I was appointed as New York State's Black Special Emphasis Program Manager, which meant that I was sat on a board with other representatives from the rest of the states in the United States to talk about what issues and challenges Black farmers were facing and what USDA could do to try and address those. At the same time, in the city of Buffalo, we were being kind of introduced to what we called then food deserts, which we now know is food apartheid, and working on ways to address that challenge. Through that, we were starting a food co-op, which was a way for farmers that I was meeting in my work with USDA to bring their fruits and vegetables, have more fresh food brought right into the city, because there had been a disconnect there. If you see on my slide here, this first slide, that logo, this is a logo that one of our partners created for us. A lot of folks say Buffalo is a drinking town with a football problem, right? And our football problem is our hometown favorite team, Buffalo Bills. They actually dedicated a design team to us, and they came up with this logo and design. I went to members of Buffalo Food Equity Network, and I asked what they thought about, what words came to mind when they heard the Agricultural Pavilion, and collectively cultivate, regenerate, and liberate were the words that we came up with. The hands in the soil on this first slide are very important to me. As part of my nonprofit work, I along my journey have become very in tune with trauma-informed care and trauma-informed approaches. So I started to become interested in why we Black folks were not a part of this agricultural industry. And it brought me to the idea that it is because of the trauma associated with the soil. So I wanted to find a way to get our hands back into the soil, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. All right, next slide. So in 2019, let me back up a little bit. I went to our Juneteenth committee. We have this huge Juneteenth festival in Buffalo, New York, which is the second largest in the country. And I wanted to find a way to bring the economic, community health, job empowerment, and just community empowerment issues to the masses in the city. And I felt like because we have so many people who attend that festival, Juneteenth would be the place to do it. I was welcomed with open arms, but I'm not a practitioner. I wasn't really a part of the groups that were doing the work. So I went to the Buffalo Food Equity Network, welcomed with open arms there as well. And that was where the idea of creating this space was formed. So for the first time in 2019, we brought, our mission was born to provide hands-on educational opportunities and demonstrations related to agriculture right to the community. When you talk to a lot of non-ag folks, and like Vaughn said, I wholeheartedly agree, ag is everywhere. Folks really don't know that, right? So I just wanted to bring the idea of what agriculture is to the community, because it's now a $1 trillion industry that was essentially built on our backs, but now because of the trauma related, we're not in it. We don't have a connect. We were losing our connection to it. So this space was a space to bring us back into it. And next slide. So through our partnerships with several organizations, including Food for the Spirit, including the Buffalo Bills, Citibank, other financial partners, and a whole host of planning partners, we were able to create this space where we had food demonstrations, plant giveaways, cooking. We had job opportunities that were presented. We have organizations that were hiring in the agricultural industry talking about what kinds of positions were available. I think it's just important that especially our children know that agriculture is not always just planting and growing, right? Because if you're interested in science, or if you're interested in soil, you can be a soil scientist. If you are interested in machinery, you can be an engineer in the agriculture industry. I think Vaughn touched on that. Also, I heard Ashley and Tiffany talk about that. And I think that just getting the word out to the thousands of folks who are already at the festival was important. Next slide. So here, I just want to talk about our model that I think is very important for sharing spaces at events. I'd asked the question about how we were engaging non-ag folks. When I think about policy, and I think about, especially when I worked on Farm Bill work, policy is driven by the world of politics, which is the squeaky wheel getting the oil from the groups who are letting their voices be heard, right? And I think when the community is not aware of an issue, they're not going, or aware of what solutions are out there, they're not going to join in on being the squeaky wheel, because they just don't know who's doing what or how to get involved. So the importance and impact of the pavilion is getting all these organizations, groups, folks, individuals who are doing this fantastic work in front of the community, who can then for not only just utilize the services, but also throw their support in numbers behind them. Growth, so for components for replication, all states are not going to have a Juneteenth festival, but every state has something where large groups are in attendance, and it might be a local festival, it might be a music festival. I know that there are there's just a different event in each community that's important to community members, and it may not necessarily be agriculturally focused, but I think that there's always a way to incorporate that because it's both a community health issue as well as economic empowerment. We can go to the next. So in this slide, and it's rather wordy, so I'm not going to just read straight through it. The reason why we chose the Juneteenth to be the vehicle for this endeavor is, like I said, there's usually between 5,000 and 10,000 folks in attendance each year. It is a very unifying event for the community. It's also a declaration of our own independence as a people. And I think that in agriculture, it's necessary to connect that with independence, right? Because when you are thinking about agriculture, and we all know this, it can be used as a form of oppression or as a form to fight against oppression. So I just think that it made sense for that to be the space. So now the agricultural pavilion has actually grown from what it was in the beginning. We have a space for children, and I think it's very important for our kids to get their hands in the soil and start to create positive core memories with the soil. So they're usually making something like a garden box, just getting their hands in the dirt. They have seeds, and they're able to connect with gardeners and folks who are crafters, and creating this memory of doing something together. We usually have the University of Buffalo that comes and does a presentation with their students. We had a presentation of cash crops that were brought over from enslaved Africans that became a vital part of the United States economy. And it's just an amazing space where you can just see like the sharing of ideas, skills, transferring of knowledge, and sparking of interest in all things agriculture. Next. And this is just kind of a combination of what I've been talking about. I did want to remind myself to highlight that Rebecca was really, really a key person in supporting my vision. I've been working full-time for a financial institution all during the time that I've been working to plan and coordinate the agricultural pavilion. So it's been very important to have members of Food for the Spirit, members of Buffalo Food Equity Network, and Rebecca there as a support, because I didn't have capacity to do a lot of the footwork and behind the scenes stuff, as it was this vision, this big vision in my head that I wanted to bloom, but it wasn't where I was working full time. And because of this collaboration, it's become like even bigger than what I ever saw in my mind. Next slide. And this is just a little information about Buffalo Food Equity Network. I don't want to talk too much about it because I don't know if anyone else was planning on touching on it. But the members of the Food Equity Network are the group who comes in and does activities within the Ag Pavilion. So for example, we have Buffalo Freedom Gardens, which is a group that was spearheaded by the late Mother Gail Wales, who they took gardens and farms and brought the materials to folks' homes in the city of Buffalo, and they set up tables in the pavilion and it was an opportunity for folks to sign up for that. We had a story booth where we had folks could come in and tell their story about their connection with food, and that was just very important. So there are some really powerful things that are happening, and it's because of members of the Buffalo Food Equity Network. Next slide. So our transformation, this on the bottom is the shelter that's just in the middle of a park, and this is what we transform each year into the Juneteenth Agricultural Pavilion. And I just think that it's super important, and it's also incredibly powerful to me to see this space as a shelter with tables and to be able to see the life that's brought into it. And it's I think a metaphor for agriculture itself. Next slide. Yep, I'm wrapping. So this is a picture of Becca giving away seedlings to a child. Next slide. Next slide. We do a garden in a bag, and we have hands-on activities where families are able to not only receive produce and plant seedlings to take home, but they also are able to talk with master gardeners and folks who can help give them knowledge on how to grow. They can tell them where they want to put their plants in their house, ask questions, and find out information about how they can keep it going and get more into agriculture for the rest of the year. And I'm just going to go quickly through the rest of these. You can go to the next slide. So these next few slides are just highlighting some of the partners who have helped plan in 2019 and in 2022, and in now and in 2023. We've had mostly the same sponsors. So we've had sponsors and partners who have remained committed, as well as we've grown and added on new partners. So that is it. And if anyone has any questions for me, I would love to answer them. And I really, really, really want to come and see what you guys are doing in Kentucky. I've been really inspired, and I want to see it for myself.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jamie. So we're going to turn it over to Joanna. Let's see, do the tech for just a moment. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Becca and Jamie, for that beautiful presentation. And thank you, Becca, for having me. So as Becca mentioned, well, good afternoon, everyone. And as Becca mentioned, my name is Joanna Dorsey, and I'm the co-executive director for policy and social impact at Black Farmers United, New York State. So Black Farmers United is a member-based nonprofit organization of over 100 Black agriculturalists, land stewards, and farmers across New York State. In my role as the Director of Policy and Social Impact, I communicate with our state and federal legislators to express the needs and the stories of our Black agriculturalist community, and help to influence as well as create legislation, as well as redirect funds, state earmark funds for Black farmers. Some of the programs that we've worked with this year include New York Food for New York Families, Summer Youth and Ag Program, the establishment and working on that bill, and then also the establishment of an urban agriculture task force with our assembly member from Brooklyn. Legislation that we worked on with our coalition partners include the Good Food New York bill, as previously mentioned, as well as the federal farm bill. I want to do something a little interactive really quickly, not too much, but just as a show of hands, or just like a thumbs up. Could you put it in the chat if you are familiar with the federal farm bill? Awesome. I see some thumbs up. Awesome. So for those who are not familiar with it, I'll just give a quick rundown. So the 2023 Farm Bill is a comprehensive piece of legislation that is revised and passed every 5 years. So the next bill will be up for renewal in 2028. The bill basically guides agricultural policy in the United States and covers a wide range of programming areas. Some of those areas include commodity programs, conservation, nutrition assistance, rural development, research, horticulture and specialty crops, crop insurance, energy, and then various other programs, including those supporting beginning farmers, socially disadvantaged farmers, and veteran farmers. So about 2 years ago, leading up to the 2023 Farm Bill, a coalition was formed that included Food for the Spirit, Northeast Farmers of Color, who Becca mentioned earlier as being a part of New York State's Black farmer ecosystem, Equity Advocates, and then Black Farmers United. I joined this coalition about a year in, and at that point, the Farm Bill platform had already been created by this coalition. I want to share a link to the Farm Bill platform, and I'll just put it in the chat after I'm done the presentation. But the Farm Bill platform established by this coalition reimagined the Farm Bill, and it included amendments to create a more racially just and sustainable bill that included provisions that directly affect the BIPOC communities across the United States. So some of these provisions included lowering the age of eligibility for SNAP recipients, the inclusion of hot food in the SNAP program, and extensions to some of the COVID-related subsidies for food access. So in order to spread the word about the coalition's Farm Bill platform, we created a monthly listening session where we invited people from across the Northeast region to attend and to be educated on the Farm Bill and its importance to their everyday lives. In addition to the listening sessions, which were essential to spreading the word, the coalition also created and helped to organize what we called a public narrative training. The idea which was birthed by Becca from Food for the Spirit and really, really turned out to be such an amazing event. So communication through artistic and unconventional means is vital for engagement with legislators. Artistic expression, such as visual arts and music, theater, and of course, storytelling, can vividly convey personal and communal experiences, making the challenges and needs more relatable and urgent. These creative methods really help to cut through the typical rhetoric, capturing the attention and evoking empathy in ways that traditional approaches may not. So by harnessing the power of art and creativity, communities can more effectively highlight their unique perspectives and drive meaningful policy change that addresses some of the issues that we see within our communities. The Farm Bill significantly influenced our approach to the public narrative training. This was about a week-long retreat and training that took place in upstate New York and Albany, and we had about 15 to 20 attendees from across the Northeast. I see some of the attendees on today's call. I know Monty is on here, and then Adama, who was also a part of it. I think she had to leave, but she was also joined us a little bit earlier on this call. So the aim of the training was to equip farmers and food advocates with the skills that are necessary to effectively communicate with their communities and legislators. And it also aimed to empower them to advocate for themselves and for their communities. This training was crucial not only for Farm Bill advocacy, but also for shaping the overall messaging that is essential for the broader food justice conversation and advocacy efforts. So at this time, I would like to share just a 2-minute video from one of the public narrative attendees. Her name is Bree Hassan. And Becca, if you could cue that up, that would be great.
My name is Bree Hassan, and I am a health and wellness advocate. My relationship to food has always been a deep one. I was born with a hungry spirit. Perhaps I died from famine in a past life. In the middle of the night, once I was old enough to crawl by myself, my mom searched all over the house looking for me. And I was in the kitchen in the pitch black with my arm down the cereal box, smacking. This became a common thing throughout my childhood, me escaping into a quiet place to eat food. My grandfather suffered from diabetes. a common life-threatening food-related disease. Growing up as a child, I consistently suffered from severe gut problems and IBS. But I was totally disconnected from any possible reason within my own control, like practicing healthier food rituals. By 29, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. It causes inflammation, and celiac disease, which is a lot. It's an immune reaction to eating gluten, basically, which is found in most foods. The need to be nourished brought me to a Buffalo Food Equity Network luncheon. My mom invited me, and there was a lot of good food and familiar, warm faces. And since then, I've been to multiple trainings, meetings, conferences, and fellowships. I became a part of Food for the Spirit, a part of the Buffalo Food Equity Network, and that opened my mind to the structural issues around the overall lack of health and nutrition in my community. And it opened my heart to the validity of my own experiences and the power of advocacy, the power of taking ownership of our own local food systems within our own community, like growing your own food, and the impact that sharing your stories can have as a frontline community member. My community deserves access to good health and to nutritious food options, and communities across the nation suffering from food apartheid.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So as I wrap up, I just want to reiterate that this training and this collaborative movement has really helped to give voice to issues within the food system and allowed us to even have a powerful tool to use when we're in meetings with legislators and stakeholders. The videos and the collaborative efforts that went in to put this entire program together really speaks to the situation at hand and also adds a humanistic value to the messaging, allowing stakeholders and legislators and decision makers to hear firsthand from people in the communities that they serve. Our future programming has really leaned into and borrowed from this idea. Some of our future programming includes bringing legislators to our farms so that they can speak one-on-one and break bread with our farmers to really understand what community building and collaboration looks like. And in the long term, the idea is to continue collaboration with people within our communities and within our regions and within our states to really build this thing that we call community, because there is indeed power in numbers and power in coalition and community. So thank you so much. And I'm going to hand it back to Rebecca.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joanna, and thank you, Jamie. Just so blessed to be able to work in partnership with the two of you these last few years. And I'm just gonna take a minute to, actually, I'm gonna put you all back up here with me while we close down this space. So, and I know we're going a bit over time. I wanted to make sure I allowed us plenty of time to hear from the Kentucky folks and then also to dig into our two presentations. But I want to just share and that the reason I invited Jamie and Joanna to present today is because of that, again, that triumvirate of policy advocacy and outreach efforts, the connecting farmers to markets, and also connecting the public to farmers and Black farmers, and also uplifting our stories and our narratives. So I'm just, the work that we've done in Food for the Spirit would not be possible without these partnerships. And a lot of the base of what we've done is through these partnerships and through the relationships that we've developed with folks like Jamie and Joanna and many people on the call. Just some shout outs of people who in the founding of Food for the Spirit, I've worked deeply with. So Malini Suchek in the chat, Elizabeth Henderson, of course, Monty, I think Christina Cabrera is with NISA. Yes, Lauren Van Osten with the West New York Foundation. So just really grateful for these deep partnerships that we've had in the past. So thanks again, Joanna and Jamie. And I'm just going to say a little bit, so our role, my role as the founder of Food for the Spirit really has been developing relationships with folks who are, like myself, seeking to uplift food sovereignty and justice for Black communities, for Black and Brown communities, and getting to know those folks who are out there doing that work here in New York State, building strong relationships and partnerships, and figuring out how we are going to work together. Also seeing Katie Baldwin in the chat, in the participants too. So just acknowledging these partnerships that have made this work possible over the years. Again, thanks, Katie, for your partnership as well. So yeah, Joanna. Yeah, I'm just scrolling through the participants and names of folks, and hers just popped up. So yeah, and just there's been so many people, too many people to recount here how we've been able to accomplish this work. But really the event today, I wanted it to be a platform for kind of how we might build on this moment and seize the transitional moment that we're in as an organization. I think a lot of us who have been part of small startups know what it's like to be a sole person out there, like, just trying to get the work done and trying to figure it out. And, Food for the Spirit has expanded our team in 2023, and even in the years prior to 2023, leading up to 2023, we added some individuals who have vastly grown our work. So I'm going to shout out some of the Food for the Spirit homies team who are on our call right now. So Brina Newell, thank you. India Walton, thank you. Nina Ferguson, thank you, who is, along with myself, the other full-time staff person on Food for the Spirit. I also want to acknowledge that we also have a team of independent contractors that we've worked alongside who are our network. Some of them are network members. Many of them are network members. So Annika Radin-Snaith, who's a member of the Finger Lakes Accountability Network. Thank you, Annika. Malini Suchek, who is a member of the Buffalo Food Equity Network. We had other network members on the call earlier, Adama Grace, who's a member of the Buffalo Food Equity Network. And also we featured Bree Hassan in the video, and Bree has been a very active member of the Buffalo Food Equity Network. So before you all leave, the call to action and the invitation on the table is for you to consider engaging in Food for the Spirit moving forward. We are moving from this single person, founder-led organization to an organization that is really seeking to embrace something called sociocracy. So we're going to be diving deep into what sociocracy is as an organization and learning how to work in what sociocracy refers to as circles. And if we can drop in the chat the link to Philly Thrive. Philly Thrive is a base building movement organization based in Philadelphia, who Food for the Spirit and the Buffalo Food Equity Network got to learn alongside the last 3 years with Race Forward and the Policy Innovation Lab. And Philly Thrive uses this circles model and sociocracy to work in collaboration with their constituents and partners. And so, they've been a really strong kind of pinnacle of example for how another movement building organization like Food for the Spirit is working. So we're planning to and then Sociocracy for All, which Annika just dropped in the chat, I believe, is a resource that offers training on sociocracy and circles. So that is something that as an organization, we're going to be moving into. So we're going to just drop in the chat also a link to a simple form where we're inviting anybody who is interested in learning alongside us, and more importantly, potentially joining us in a Food for the Spirit circle to support our, especially our strategy work. So at the first circle that we're really in need of is kind of including more people in the iterative process, right? So for a long time, it was just me. And now there's like a whole team of homies. We're missing Emily Miauchi on the call today, but she is another one of our homies in Food for the Spirit. And, you know, so how do we move even beyond just our, you know, staff and contractors, and how do we actually include our partners, our collaborators, our community, our broad community in this kind of model of decision making around spheres of work. So we're going to be moving into that as an organization, and just I want to just uplift a phrase that comes from movement generation, which is, if we are not prepared to govern, we are not prepared to win. And so really thinking about how do we move out of the tyrannical one person making all the decisions to like collective models of decision making. So as an organization, as a nonprofit organization, we're really trying to lean into this, and we've been asking this question of ourselves since last fall. So what does that look like? So we'd invite you to consider getting involved, and if you are interested in joining Food for the Spirits and Kentucky Black Farmer Association for kind of a follow-up just conversation around anything discussed here. Again, Tiffany and I will be on Zoom next Monday, August 12th from 6 to 7. So just email info@foodforthespirit.org, and we will add you to the calendar invite for that. So the email address would just be our info@ email address. And I'm sorry, we've ran out of time. I can stay on for a couple of questions now if there are any. I don't know if Jamie and Joanne are able to, but I see a nod. Just maybe if there's any questions from folks. Oh, you're fine, Jamie. And I see some people dropping off. So if there's anybody. I see a question. Okay, great. Mostly people just saying what a great event. So thank you, everybody. We're going to close today, and thank you to all of our presenters, Ashley, Tiffany, Jamie, Joanna. Yeah, so thank you. And we'll say goodbye. Bye, everybody.
Take care, everyone. Thank you so much, Becca.
Bye.